What curious habits. Every day we consume hundreds of products, and as we know, not all of them are the same. Some are more common and cheap, and others are a bit exclusive and can be a little more expensive. From the cashew nuts you're eating to the Cuban gold chains that several celebrities wear, there are some things that for some reason are extremely expensive. Because of this and much more, here are 10 things you probably didn't know why they cost so much. Cuban gold chains. We know that wearing gold jewelry is a symbol of luxury, but can we take this to the next level if we wear a authentic Cuban gold chain? These flashy necklaces became popular in the United States and in hip-hop, and later among reggaeton musicians. It's interesting to know that their price can easily exceed $30,000. And although many are machine-made, a few are handcrafted in exclusive shops, which increases their value. And to understand why they are so expensive, we have to keep in mind that their value is already linked to the price of the most coveted precious metal in the world. Because yes, gold is always expensive, and since it's not abundant, its price keeps going up. Besides that factor, authentic Cuban chains require many hours of work. A single necklace requires at least 14 hours of dedication, where the skills of the most experienced jewelers are put to the test. Since for its production, the gold has to go through different stages, such as smelting and molding by machines at high temperatures. The soldering depends on the size, but many times it's so difficult to shape the links by hand that the craftsmen have to join forces with 2 or more workers. This complex artisanal process, along with a high demand from customers, means that Cuban gold chains continue to have a very high value, and there is a wait of several months to be able to order one.
Castañas de cajú.
Nuts are part of many people's diets because they're very practical when we want to eat something nutritious, and they last for many months. One characteristic that generally makes them a bit more expensive than other foods. But in the case of cashews, there's also another surprising factor that makes them the most expensive. This type of nut, also known as cashew nut, grows in tropical climates and is harvested only once a year. But without proper processing, the cashew nuts wouldn't be edible, since they're covered by a poisonous oil that can cause blisters and burns just by touching it. That's why, to make them completely safe to eat, they require much more rigorous processing than other nuts. Once they're harvested, the cashew nuts are left to dry in the sun so that as much of their toxic oil as possible can drain out. Then the fruit is split in half, which is quite dangerous because it still contains traces of the caustic substance. And then when the cashew nuts are extracted, they go through a roasting process to completely remove the toxins, and finally, they are peeled by hand, one by one, to remove the hard shell that forms. Each stage is done slowly, using traditional methods, since these are very fragile and dangerous. Because they don't grow year-round, this nut is among the most expensive in the world. Stay away from cashews, Timmy. Durian. So many types of fruit grow on our planet that it would be very difficult to try them all, and one of the most exotic can be found in Asia and the Pacific. We're talking about durian, known as the king of fruits, and also for its unpleasant smell, which is so bad that in some hotels and public transportation, it's outright banned. The most striking thing is that today, durian is the most expensive fruit in the world. To understand why, we need to know that it is a special variety that grows in the Nonthaburi region of Thailand. In this area, the soil is very rich in nutrients, which is why the flavor of the fruit ends up being much richer. The growers follow methods that they have learned over many generations to give the trees all the care they need in order to bear fruit. The trees require a great deal of dedication. For approximately 6 years, they are watered every day with water purchased solely for that purpose. In addition, the fruits are constantly monitored and protected with plastic to prevent pests and diseases. But the amount of durian produced is not enough to meet all the existing demand. So it is common for buyers to reserve the fruit while it is still on the tree, and for there to be no availability for several months. All of this makes the price of each fruit exceed $300. And at some auctions, a single unit is bought for several $1,000s. Gold. If we think of a luxury item, we probably imagine something with gold, this precious metal, the symbol of wealth. But besides being very present in jewelry, it is also used for many other things. for example, as a store of value, in components for medicine, electronics, and even as protection in space helmets. Gold is a versatile, malleable metal. It conducts electricity well and it doesn't rust. And since it's used in so many industries, there is more gold in objects on the Earth's surface than inside the mines. And the reason for its high price is that it is a very scarce metal. Nowadays, it can take more than 10 years to find a new deposit. And even if it is eventually found, the chance that there is a good amount of gold is less than 1%. It is estimated that there are about 55,000 tons of this metal left in the Earth's crust. So it is likely that in less than 20 years, natural gold reserves will be depleted. And a second reason that explains why its value is so high is that it is the preferred way for people to save when they want to store wealth in objects they can see and touch. Lobster. Many dishes that we now consider luxurious were quite common in the past, and a good example of this is lobster. These crustaceans used to be known as sea cockroaches, and during times of war they were food for prisoners and the lower classes. It was only after World War II that, almost by chance, they gradually grew in popularity and became a delicacy associated with the upper classes. But if we want to know why eating lobster is so expensive nowadays, we need to understand some details of how it is caught. To begin with, there were several attempts to farm lobsters, but they were never successful. Additionally, they can take up to 7 years to grow to a size large enough to be consumed. And moreover, catching them in the ocean is not easy at all and takes quite a bit of time. On top of that, things get even more complicated with the logistics of getting them to markets and restaurants, since the animals must be transported alive so they can be eaten right away while still fresh and safe. And it's this transportation chain that ends up making the price even higher, in addition to the fact that each lobster yields very little meat, which is what customers are interested in consuming. Japanese eel. Every country has its typical foods, and some dishes around the world can surprise us, not only because of their ingredients, but also because of their high price. A great example of this is the consumption of eel dishes in Japan, found on various menus at specialized restaurants. Is eating Japanese eel really that expensive? Because first of all, it's a fish that isn't caught as an adult but must be raised in huge farms. And raising eel, it's not easy at all, since throughout the whole year they require a lot of dedication, daily care, and also expensive feed. On the other hand, capturing baby eels in the sea to take them to the farms is becoming more and more difficult, since their population has greatly decreased due to overfishing and climate change. That's why a kilo of baby eels is almost as valuable as gold, meaning it's worth more than $35,000. And not only is eel production very expensive, but preparing and cooking them in restaurants is a true art that takes many years to learn, and very few chefs manage to fully master it. All of this, combined with the high demand from customers that keeps growing, results in the high price of this exclusive food. Why is it so expensive? Why? Cuban cigars. When it comes to indulging in certain pleasures, some people choose to try different varieties of tobacco in various cigarettes, and the most famous ones are the handmade Cuban cigars, crafted in Cuba, internationally recognized for their quality. A single box of Cuban cigars can cost over $1,500, and they are only sold in a few countries. In part, this factor explains their price, but the truth is that every cigar made on the island has many specialists behind it, and that increases its value. For example, growing tobacco requires about a year of care before the plants can be harvested, and at that moment, each leaf is inspected one by experts. Then they are sorted according to their variety and hung to dry in places called drying rooms. And when they are ready, the cigar makers skillfully assemble each cigar using traditional methods from a culture that is more than 200 years old. How each cigar is rolled and its size also determine the price of these products, as well as whether they are aged, just like with some alcoholic beverages. This Havana tradition, combined with fertile soil and the ideal climate for tobacco plants, allows Cuba to market its classic cigars at very high prices. Vegetable tanned leather. For hundreds of years, leather has been one of the most widely used materials to make items such as bags, wallets, and footwear. But among the different varieties of leather that exist, There is one in particular that is the most exclusive and is produced in the region of Tuscany, Italy. This type of leather is handcrafted in a slow and ancient process called vegetable tanning. In this technique, natural substances found in trees called tannins are used. These extracts, unlike synthetic tannins, make each piece unique. It becomes especially delicate over time and lasts much longer. The natural tanning process is very long and complex, and it can take up to 28 times longer than the production of synthetic leather. After preparing the hides and soaking them for a day, each piece is placed for 6 weeks in huge rotating barrels that contain the substances that will finally tan them. And since the process is so delicate, the following stages, such as drying or different treatments, are supervised by expert craftsmen who pay attention to the smallest detail. Vegetable tanning produces the highest quality leather, but at the same time it greatly increases its value, making it the most expensive kind there is. And that's why only 10% of the leather worldwide is made using this exclusive method. Rolex watches. Many brands manage to make their products instantly recognizable to the public, and one of those that has undoubtedly achieved this is Rolex. Nowadays, most people know what this well-known company does, and some can even recognize a Rolex on the street. The secret of these watches is that they were always designed with a particular aesthetic, since at first they were marketed with every aesthetic in mind. Tools were included along with the watch. That's why their solid appearance and their designs became a hallmark. A few years later, these watches definitely became an icon of fashion and luxury. And to understand why, we need to know that each piece is a limited edition and takes about a year to manufacture. In addition, they are made with top quality materials and undergo constant quality control, which means that if we take good care of them, they could last 100 years or even much longer. They also come with a lifetime after-sales service, which increases their durability. And finally, since they are limited editions, it's not exactly known how many units exist of each model. That's why some watches become collectibles and their value increases a lot, sometimes being auctioned for millions of dollars. Thank you for the Rolex Swiss Ops. Bluefin tuna? Sushi is one of the traditional foods of Japan, and generally, it's more expensive than other dishes, not only because of its artisanal preparation, but also because it uses fine ingredients like fresh fish. One of the most exclusive is bluefin tuna, since its meat is considered a real delicacy. This type of fish has just the right amount of fat, which makes it ideal for a type of sushi that is highly prized by Japanese customers. The specimens caught in the wild are the ones with the best quality and texture, and 80% of the bluefin tuna caught in the Atlantic and Pacific ends up in Japanese cuisine. And the high demand from consumers for this fish, combined with the fact that its population is very scarce because it is endangered, that's what makes a single kilo cost thousands of dollars or entire specimens auctioned off at very high prices.